We will be contacted by mental health professionals in the following days.
G'day everyone, hope you're all doing okay. This isn't as you probably, if you've been following my channel, you'll see I'll go through different sorts of processes and pathways to try and solve or beat a ticket or to help people out in court. Now, as far as AT is concerned, parking tickets and bus lane tickets, so moving vehicle offences, those sorts of things that they have jurisdiction over, such as bus lane, they, as I've shown from the last bus lane ticket I got way back in January a year or so ago, or 2 years ago, I challenged the entire process, went through the court, even got the Justice of the Peace at the time to admit that one of the elements of the offence is who was the driver. Now, he made a very interesting point that there is a remedy. In other words, there is a legal defence, which is section 4 of 133, 133A of the Land Transport Act. Now, 133 is for moving, 133A is for stationary. So bus lane ticket 133 subsection 4, which basically means that if you were not the person driving at the time, you can fill out the transfer of liability order. Now, I've just had a friend who had actually sold his vehicle, and he got issued a speeding ticket about a week or so after he sold it. Now, all he knew about the person was what he believed to be his name. Didn't know where he lived, didn't know his driver's license number, didn't take any of that details. It was a simple, I like the car, here's some cash, see you later. So there was no, information transferred. It was left on the fact that the new owner was going to transfer, and my friend had a lot of trust in the guy. He hadn't met him, but he was a friend of a friend, so to speak. So anyway, he got a ticket after selling it. So we filled out the declaration. Now, the declaration say that you have to supply all of these details. That's not the case, because all we did was fill in the declaration saying it was sold about a week beforehand. In other words, it was not in his legal possession, and gave what we thought was the full name of the new owner. He didn't have his address, didn't have his driver's license, date of birth, any of that bullshit to give to them. Just, this is his name. Went to a JP, got it signed. The JP actually said that she actually had a rental company come in, and she signed 56 of these declarations in one day, because there was some issue with the rental company being issued them all the time. So this person apparently drove up and down a driving lane twice every day for a month and clocked up all of these tickets. So she just, it was normal for the JP at the community services centre to to stamp it and just say, yep, fine. And all you have to do is to swear that it's true and correct, to the best of his knowledge, which it was. So he ended up getting a response back from the Police Enforcement Bureau tickets at NZPIB, saying that it was now out of his name, because his main concern wasn't really the cost of the ticket, it was the fact that he was getting demerit points on his name and he didn't want them. So anyway, that process worked. We clarified that and did it as a trial run, and we know that that process works. Now, with my last bus lane ticket, I challenged it. I went into I requested a court process. Now, normally when you first get the ticket, don't fucking ignore it. Silence is acquiescence. The fact that you ignore it means you're agreeing with whatever they're stating. So don't ignore it. You can either respond one way or another. Respond by saying, hi, yes, it's mine. Respond by saying, hi, I wasn't in possession of the vehicle. Here's my, transfer of liability form signed by the JP and everything, and give them that. Or you can request the court hearing. Now, when I did mine, from January through to June the following year is how long it took to deal with that. So we're talking basically 18 months in total. And then after those 18 months in total, going through the court process, and the court still finding me guilty under the presumption that I, being the registered owner, was the driver, even I'm standing there and saying I wasn't driving. That's the whole point, that I'm requesting a court hearing because I'm pleading not guilty. To me, that means I wasn't the driver, but no, they're saying you have to fill out the transfer of liability. So it doesn't matter if you stand there in court and give your own evidence and say, no, I wasn't driving that day, because they'll just turn around and ignore that. Even if you get, the prosecution's witness on the stand and say to the witnesses, can you identify this person as the driver on that day? And they can't do it, as in my case, they will still presume that you're the registered owner because you didn't take the pathway of filling out the transfer of liability option, which is 113 subsection 4 of the Land Transport Act. So this time I actually had a friend up from Ashburton, and she hadn't seen Auckland before, and I took her for a midnight hihi tour around Auckland, down Queen Street, K Road, over the bridge. She hates bridges. So we went for a tiki tour all around Auckland pretty much, did the big loop, and it was after I was dropping her home. She'd come out to visit me and my family for the night. And anyway, a month or so later, I get a ticket saying I was in a bus lane at the top of Queen Street going down the hill. Apparently both lanes going downhill are bus lanes. Doesn't matter which fucking lane I picked, I was a bus lane. So you can't be in a bus lane for more than 50 metres, so future reference, I'm just going to zigzag in between the different lanes all the way down within 50 metres each time. Then I'm not in any specific lane for more than 50 metres, and they can go fuck themselves, and I will have fun in court trying that one. But for this one, I just obviously didn't know. There was a lot of roadworks and stuff going on as well. I basically went down Queen Street, turned up Merrill Drive to show her where the old pig station was, and then we went over the bridge. So yeah, got a ticket. Now my friend says, tell me I'll pay it. I says, no, look, at the end of the day, I was driving, you weren't in control of the vehicle, I was. So I'm accepting liability for it, even though she was happy for me to transfer it over to her. She wasn't the driver, alright, and that's not fair. So she had no idea where I was taking them and driving, so it's not her problem. I was just being a nice host. But so in that regard, thank you but no thank you, my friend. And so I thought, instead of going through the whole court process, now as I said, it took 18 months through the court process. Then the Ministry of Justice fraudulently said that I was charged $130 worth of court fees when I wasn't. I was charged $30 court fees. Then I sent the Ministry of Justice my own recording of the court proceedings, where the judge, or JP, states $30 court costs. I even contact the prosecutor and verify an email from him that the costs were $30. And then finally, after a month of pig-headed, stubborn behaviour, and I've never struck a district court like Manukau in my life. They are disgusting to deal with compared to all of the other courts I've had to deal with. And yeah, so they finally corrected their misrepresentation, their fraud under Section 240 of the Crimes Act, and redid the ticket to $30. So that was from June to August, mid-August, late August, is when I finally contacted the Department of Collections and arranged to pay it off at $5 a week. Alright? Now this is crucial, because, it's a debt. I'll pay it, no problem, and at an amount that I can afford to do so. Ironically, last week I just finished paying off that $180 debt. It was consisting of $150 for the ticket itself and $30 for the court costs. So I thought to myself, I'm not going to keep feeding the monster and paying the court's costs when they corruptly find me guilty without any fucking evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Even though I'm standing there saying, wasn't me, you can't prove otherwise. They'll go back to that presumption because I didn't fill out the declaration. So what I did this time is because I completely ignored the first notice, and then I got sent the reminder, which jolted my memory, and I thought, oh, okay, better deal with this. I'm not going to request a court hearing, and I'm going to contact AT, which I did. I sent them an email saying I have no wish to go through a court process. In good faith, I'm setting up an AP for $5 a week, starting blah blah blah. It's going to run for 30 weeks, totaling $150, and that's starting this week. As it is now, a few weeks down the line, I've already paid them $15 off. And in the response I got yesterday on the 18th of April was, well, if it's not paid in full by the due date, we're going to pass it over to Baycorp. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ring the consumers, the consumer.org people, and ask them what my legal standings are. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you ignore the bus lane ticket, if I had no correspondence and didn't pay anything, it would have get the ticket 28 days later, reminder, 28 days later, notice of court proceedings, and they'll take you through the court process. If you ignore all of that, they'll find you guilty, because again, silence is acquiescence, and then they will just put an attachment on your wages, or attachment on your benefit with me, like I just did. So, to avoid all of that crap, and to avoid feeding the judiciary with my costs, or court costs, because I'm requesting the hearing, I said I have no interest in requesting a hearing, and if they wish to, because clearly by the time that due date of 22nd of April comes along, and I might point out it's only the 19th of April, after that time, it's about September, is when I'll be finished paying off at $5 a week. Bear in mind, it's exactly the same as what I've just finished doing with the Departments of Collections after doing the entire court process, and it taking roughly just over 2.5 years for all of them to recoup their money. So to me, are you going to be happy with 30 weeks, just over 6 months of paying $5 a week, which you ended up getting after a lengthy delay and having to pay legal fees and all the rest for the lawyers to come and do the prosecution, where you're losing a shitload of money going through the court process for, enforcing the fine? Or would you just be happy to accept the $5 a week payment directly to you? Now, I didn't discuss this with AT to begin with, because if you go into any bank you go to, there are already preloaded payees there, farmers, MasterCard, Visa, all those sorts of people that are preloaded. Auckland Transport is also preloaded. So all I did was pay that account with my reference number of the infringement number, and clearly it's working, because the letter I got yesterday, and I'll pop it up so you can see it, it shows that I've already paid them $15. So I've made 3 payments already. I thought I'd only made 2. And it shows that the balance was $135, which to me proves that they can accept part payments a week. They may not be under the Credit Management Act and under the credit controllers and that sort of thing. They may not themselves be able to offer part payment, but that's all I'm willing to give them. And by my argument, they'll be getting it about 2 years before they get it if we went through the whole court process, which would only cost me an extra $30, but still feeding the system. So in their letter yesterday, they say, well, if it's not paid by the due date, we're just going to forward it on to Baycorp. So my question is, do I have to contract with Baycorp? They've sold the debt on, okay, but to me, they've fraudulently entered into a contract with Baycorp by selling a debt which they know is currently and still being paid off to them on a regular basis. They have no right to send that to a Baycorp. Now, in their letter they state it doesn't affect your credit rating, so what do I give a fuck anyway? But Baycorp's going to have a little bit of a problem with me if they ring up and say, we just need to confirm that we're talking to the right person. And 10 years ago I went through all of this shit with Baycorp, and I needed them to define what type of person they believed I was, because I'm just a man. Now, if they want me to create joinder and give them a name of a persona, or my legal person, again, which type of person? Interpretations Act, which I think has now been turned into the Legislation Act, Section 29 states a person is a body corporate, corporation sole, or unincorporated body. And if you go over to the Bill of Rights, Section 29, it'll state that there are natural and legal persons. So right there, there's 5 different persons. natural person, legal person, corporation, sole, body corporate, or unincorporated body. So which of those 5 persons do they want to confirm I am when they're ringing up wanting to confirm it? Now, if you go online, it says don't give any out of your sensitive or personal or financial information. So I've got a complete stranger, purportedly from Baycorp, that will be ringing me up, asking me to make a jointer with them through the name. They're not going to get very far. They didn't last time. Everyone got paid, and they didn't get their little collection costs, which ironically will be more than the $30 court cost, but I'll keep you posted on that one. So for today, I'm just going to ring up Consumer, explain the simple facts, and we'll see how we get on. Sorry for babbling, guys, but I like to try and give you the entire process so you see where I'm going. Okay, now bear in mind the reminder notice that I got that prompted me to set up the AP, its due date is the 22nd of April, so I'm not even 56 or 60 days into being notified about this infringement. By rights, if I ignore that, I should have got a notice of court proceedings next, which I would have thought would be the next step if it's not being paid. But as I've accepted the liability by setting up an automatic payment to them, I've notified them of this. Where do I stand if they sell that debt on to Baycorp? Because I'm not paying them their collection costs, just as the same reason I set up the AP was to avoid having to pay court costs. I don't think AT is going anywhere in the next 6 months, so it's not like their company's shutting down and can't accept the payment. Now, last time I checked, any debt you have up to 5 years to pay off, irrespective of what their minimum requirements are. But unfortunately, some departments of collections people seem to think that they can dictate, oh, you've got to pay it off within 8 weeks. We can only break down the debt over 8 weeks. So for a $200 debt, we're going to do you $12.50 a week. So even though I have that debt collector telling me, hey, we won't accept $5 a week. The next debt, the bus lane ticket I've just finished paying off, was ironically at $5 a week. So they're full of shit, and now I literally have documents to prove everything I'm saying. From the Department of Collections, so they'll have fun next time if that ever comes to pay again. But for this time, I'm not doing the court process. I'm simply honouring the debt, set up an AP at a price I can afford, and that's the end of it as far as I'm concerned. AT's response wasn't, thank you for setting up the AP, just an update on what the balance owing was, $15 less than $150, $135 owing, and telling me that, well, doing the old, surreptitious threat that it's going to get passed on to Baycorp. Well, that's between them and Baycorp. Baycorp can charge them their collection fees, because if they don't collect the debt, and I'm paying it directly to AT before they even got involved, why should I change anything? Anyway, let's give them a call and see how we go. We'll do it in 2 parts so you don't have to keep watching such a long vid. I'll be back real soon.
We will be contacted by mental health professionals in the following days. I look forward to catching up with you next time. All the best.